Okay, so we're going to do practice tonight, and I think I say this every single time. This is really important. But again, being at the London Golf Show this weekend. I think that it was quite incredible how many people that were there that are passionate about playing golf. Yet near enough everybody we spoke to that was having lessons and trying to get better wasn't really getting any better. Or if they were, you could sort of tell that it was because they were playing a lot of golf. So I think that what the area that we're going into is that once we get to that place where we've worked out what it is that they want and when they want it, and that they've got the beliefs that will make that happen, and they're willing to make those sacrifices, i.e. they're prepared to practice, then that practice has to be managed. And there's quite a lot of steps within this that we need to look at, and I'm not so sure I can get through the whole thing tonight. But let's look at the big debate first, which is random practice versus blocked practice. So what we have here with random practice and block practice is two areas in which the scientists have got very involved with. So in this case, when we're talking about scientists, or there's probably a better word than scientist, but let's say people that want to write theses on these subjects, they go and do exercises, and they might put 50 basketball players in and split them up into 3 separate groups and have a test group, and this is what they went away and did, and they discovered within the parameters of the experiment that when people did block practice, i.e. they repeated a task again and again and again and again, within that area they got better. What happened then with random practice is that people didn't get as good. But then when they went back, they found that the guys and girls that practiced randomly had retained the knowledge better than the block practice. So basically then, if you go on YouTube, you'll get these thousands of videos on what block practice is and what random practice is. But I think that we need to define it a little bit more carefully than that, in that what we know is from Charles Seashore is that probably blocked practice is less effective in the playing arena, is because it's not contextual and relational. So the scientists suggest that when the brain is more challenged, it's more effective. And that's why they're suggesting that random practice is more successful than block practice, because they say that when the brain is challenged and when it's forced to find new solutions, it holds on to those memories in a better way, or more effectively. So what then that challenges is, well then how do we build up the repetitions required so that this swing becomes functional? Or we could create the argument that says, well, before we can get contextual and relational, we need the body to know the movement through block practice and sort of overlearning. But then still the scientists come back and say, well, it's not effective and it will take longer. But I think that what maybe is happening is that block practice is more successful than random practice when learning that move for the range. It's then how we transition to the contextual and the relational. So I think there's quite a few ways of doing that, maybe. I don't know. So in other words, these suggestions that I'm going to make are kind of like experimental within our format, and certainly because the material that I'm about to suggest doesn't exist anywhere, then maybe we need to put this information to the people at university and the ones that are doing the studies and doing their research, and suggest they look at this. Or somebody can come back to me and say, well, I'm talking absolute rubbish, I'm talking out my head, and this is the reason it doesn't work. So I'm not saying that this is right. I'm putting this out there to find out the feedback that we can get. So look, what do we know about practice? So what is it that we already know from stage 1 and stage 2? I think that the first thing, obviously, is feedback. Is that we need to get people to focus in specifically on the feedback they're looking for within that task. Within that, then they'll have to be flexible in their changes. So they have to be flexible in adapting to what's going on. But here's the first thing I think, that if we're going to tap in to the brain's capacity in random practice, then we're going to have to tap into some of those things that happen in random practice. So I think that one of those things is taking the time to conduct each shot very experimentally, and to make sure that we draw all the feedback we can from it. Now, if you go to the manual, you've got the formal practice session, of which some of the skills within this section are included. So they go from even thinking about what you're going to do the night before, and I'm not going to go through this line by line because you've got it. But what it's definitely going to do is get you focused. Now, I think that one of the things that I've got to add to this, and that will help you make your blocked practice more random in its effectiveness, would be to create a high vibrational state on each shot. So how you would get the high vibrational state on each shot is, you would imagine you've done exactly what you're going to do and the feedback that you're going to get, and you would also then think about all the things in the future that having this is going to bring you, and that final outcome and goal, whatever you've set, how that's going to become a reality. Start living that reality, and then get into that high vibrational state that creates that extra activity in that brain, the extra solution base in the brain, about what the differences in that might even be. So I think that's very, very different from any state we've ever seen in practice. So that the combination of that depth of feedback, that quality of focus, mixed with that high vibrational state, means that I think that we've got something that's different from normal blocked practice. So I think that's the first thing that I would say, that where we might be able to tap into this. But again, if we're going to go back to what forms a neural pathway, when we practice, some certain things have still got to go on. So we need to use the sheet. We need to use our 21 balls. So I've got my balls marked 1 to 21 here, and it's the ability to work hard and go through the systems, create the high vibrational state, work on the feedback, work on the changes that get you through these balls. So what we still want to do is move on to the random practice as soon as possible, because we still know that when we make that practice random and combine all of the things that we're trying to put into blocked, we're still going to get a more effective result when it comes to the course. Because obviously, you know, the other part of practice and the other part of the difference between group and random is that obviously random is getting us course ready, but it's not just course ready, it's pressure ready. So again, I think that even within block practice we can increase the pressure by making a target more specific, by making the feedback more specific, making the whole process, you know, more likely to utilize the solution-based activity in the brain that's going to give us the long-term memory of the actions that we're actually doing. So for me, if we can get through the 21 blocked repetitions as quickly as possible, I think we're ready, if we've used all of those conditions and we've got the right feedback, to then start moving into random practice. So some of the other things that that we might do through the block practice is we might film the practice so that you could watch it. So I think that filming of the practice also might be a tool that you might encourage your clients to use, because, you know, remember the reason that we've got in the customer service that we're going to film the lesson is to raise the standard of our coaching. So we know that if we're filming that lesson, that client's going to get that film, and that there's a potential that that client would then show their friends as a testimonial to you, then you are going to perform better. Again, this comes from a motivational seminar I went to, where they suggested that if you imagine that on any day you're being filmed by a TV crew for a series that's going on, you would actually work more efficiently, you get your time better, and so on. So if we think that that's true, then the same would apply to the client. If the client is working with you as a coach and is trusting and believing you as a coach, when they film themselves practicing and you're going to review it, then they're more likely to do their practice more effectively, which is obviously something that you want them to do. Again, here in the studio, you know, I've got my mirror here. So again, one of the ways that when I'm doing block practice, because I'm not too interested in where the ball's going, but let's say I'm trying to, I'm over swinging, which is something that I do, and I want to get it shorter parallel, get a more three-quarter swing, then I can actually put my ball down and watch that in the mirror, so I get it short, and then actually hit the ball still looking in the mirror to check on everything that I'm doing, to check that I've got that moment when it stops and allowing that change of direction. So again, when you're working with your client, if you can encourage them to have that mirror there and the camera there, then they're probably going to be far more effective in their practice. And again, I think that one of the things that this will offer them as well is that they're more likely to want to do this stuff at home than at the range. So they're going to do it more often. They're going to get it set up, you know, either outside or inside, where they can do it more effectively because they know that it works. Again, the time between the shots, I think, is very important. And as you know, when we send people away to practice on their own, then we're really going to have to get them to dwell on the final follow-through position. Sorry, the final finishing position, wherever that might be. So in other words, what we're looking for to make sure is if they're going for, if we're working on keeping the extensor action, then we may just want to throw it to follow through. So we want to stop them at follow through and then check everything that's going on right here and do a freeze frame check if necessary and go back and straighten that out. So hold the finishing position and make any adjustments. And everything about this is coordinated with a well-formed plan. So either through the one sheet or the other drills that we've got on the practice drills and the agreed plan, which we write these as prescriptions as we go on the work. So I've sort of I made this sort of like 6 F's, so feedback, focus, flexibility, filmed, finish, held and adjusted with a formed and well thought out plan. So I might write that up for you in the newsletter so you can have a look at that. So being as we've already decided that being a golf coach, the part that isn't being done at all, let alone at all well, is in the management of the change, then I think that it's this area more than any other area that you need to personally go away and experiment with and do it for yourselves and put these things in action and start giving me the feedback, because despite spending hours on this information, I've received very little feedback even from my tour players on that practice sheet. Now I can only presume from that they've just gone straight into block practice and that's all they've done. And whether or not, because they've done so much block practice, that's been effective, we'll have to ask that. But what we do know 100% is block practice can only be effective in the context and relation it's working, and that is on the range. It won't naturally just shift to the course. That's a whole set of different practice which we've got to get to.